Welcome in to another episode of the Hang Time Podcast. Happy holidays to you. Sekou Smith here in Atlanta. My main man, John Schumann, is in New Jersey. Christmas Day is around the corner. 5-game slate. Marquee games, of course, as always on Tuesday, Christmas Day. All-Star voting cranks up as well on Christmas. We're going to get into that and everything else on this edition of the show. To help us get it right and to set that stage, Howard Beck of Bleacher Report. He's in Las Vegas, his favorite city, for the G League Showcase, which cranks up this afternoon. Howard, how are you feeling out there in Vegas, man? I know it's like your blood's got to be pumping in your second home.
I would say I'm here grudgingly, I guess would be the way to put it politely. I want the NBA to just really study this. When Adam Silver says we're going to take a fresh look at things, he likes using that. Can we take a fresh look at where we're putting Summer League and G League showcases? Like, there's a lot of really great cities in this country. I don't know why the NBA keeps coming back to Vegas all the time. All due respect to Vegas. I know a lot of people like it here. I just, I think I'd like to explore, Colorado Springs or something.
Yes.
Or, Jackson Hole, Montana. I don't know. Somewhere.
I vote with you.
Somewhere with fewer casinos and less smoke.
Yes, I vote with you on a rotation if there's ever going to be one. Let's see the rest of America for Summer League and all things NBA. But listen, it's good to get you on. This is perfect time to talk to you. You had a fantastic story on Giannis Antetokounmpo and kind of the relationship that is budding between his situation in the future and what Anthony Davis is going through right now. It's a must read on Bleacher Report. And we're going to get into that, Howard, momentarily. But right now, Christmas, to me, is like a great point in the NBA season to kind of lean back and take a broader view of what's going on. I talk about this to Shu all the time, that Christmas is my liftoff date for a lot of things around the league. Like, literally, I know people who don't watch NBA games until Christmas Day, and then they watch religiously from Christmas, on through the rest of the season. With All-Star voting cranking up on Christmas as well, I thought it would be cool to see from you and Shu and myself, just what is our view on All-Star starters as of right now? And I'm curious who you guys think should be the All-Star starters on both sides. And I know it's not – I don't even know what we call it anymore with the captains, so it's not necessarily just East and West. It's just All-Star starters. So I'm going to designate it by conference. Who are your 5 guys that should be starters on your Western Conference All-Star team as of now, Howard?
So I was trying to go through this exercise this morning, and I realized that I've got the inverse problem here. In the West, the backcourt is obvious and the front court is really difficult. In the East, the front court's obvious and the backcourt was really difficult. So anyway, here's where I landed on the West. The guards, this is the easy part. It's Harden and Curry. It's just absolutely James Harden, Steph Curry. And there's plenty of other guys who have done worthwhile things, Westbrook, Lillard, Klay Thompson, all the usual suspects. Mm-hmm. It's Harden and Curry, as it has been. The front court is tricky. Anthony Davis got to be there. KD has got to be there. And I really, really wanted to put Paul George there, except that there's this guy who moved from the East to the West in complicated matters this year named LeBron James. And I'm sorry, but LeBron is still better than Paul George. Did the Thunder have the better record? If you want to use it as a tiebreaker, I respect anybody who would do that. But I don't see how you displace AD or KD, and I just cannot move LeBron off the starting. His numbers, by the way, it's not just on reputation. LeBron's numbers are still there, and he's leading a kind of a ragtag group, to be honest. So it's LeBron over Paul George there, and Paul George would be like my first tough cut on the Western Conference side.
All right, Shu, who do you have in the West?
Well, I agree completely on the front court with Davis, Durant, and LeBron, but man, I wish I could stick Paul George in there somewhere because he's been really good. Yeah. In fact, I would put him in MVP consideration at some point. The backcourt, I have Steph Curry, and then I sort of flip a coin between Harden and Damian Lillard. Mm-hmm. I think Harden's given away a lot on the defensive end of the floor for as much as he's done offensively. Lillard's on a better team, and his numbers aren't that far off. I think he's still averaging 27, 5, and 6, shooting 40% from 3, shooting 89% from the free throw line, getting there 7.3 times a game. So I kind of flip a coin, and when it is time to do our official ballots, we'll have, I guess, assuming we're all part of the media vote again, we'll have another month of data to look at. But right now, those are the three guys I'm really considering.
All right. Well, my West, I agree with you guys that the backcourt is thick. It's hard to choose who to put there, but I think Steph's a no-brainer. I just think his body of work is always above and beyond the pale. I went with Lillard over Harden myself, only because and both teams have had some ups and downs, obviously, early in the year. I felt like Harden was a ghost early in the season, like at the start of the season. I don't know what he was dealing with, how he's getting through it. Once he threw the snake skin on, he was fine. When he got the short set on, it's like everything's better now. In the front court in the West, and I know I'm going to get scolded by the AD lovers for this, but I got KD, LeBron, and Paul George. I just felt like it was too hard to ignore how good Paul George has been all season, how consistent he's been. And AD and Nikola Jokic were the two toughest not to put on that first five in the West for me. Howard, in the East, did you have any easier time picking those five for your Eastern Conference starters?
So in the East, my locks were in the front court. Giannis, Joel Embiid, Kawhi Leonard. I just didn't even blink on those. The backcourt was interesting. Kemba Walker has to be there, I think, not just sentimentally because the game is in Charlotte. Although, I'm not above that. Like I think that there's a case to be made. No, seriously, like if you've got the numbers anyway, and if you're looking for tiebreakers and everything, sentimentality and other factors can come into play. I don't mind that at all, whether it's the fans voting or us voting. Right. The second one, I considered Victor Oladipo, but he missed a bunch of games. I considered Ben Simmons. I considered Bradley Beal, but man, it's tough to give the Wizards anything because they've just been such a tire fire. And then I looked again and I realized like Kyrie Irving, despite like the scuffle that the Celtics have had or that he himself, I think, had the first few weeks, Kyrie's actually put together a pretty strong season to date. So I went Kemba and Kyrie in the backcourt with Giannis, Embiid, and Kawhi. Gotcha.
That's a hard list to argue with you. Did you have the same five?
Front court's the same. And yeah, I think of the four groups, the East front court was the easiest as far as Leonard, Antetokounmpo, and Embiid.
Yeah.
The backcourt, I have Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons.
Really? Ben Simmons? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean he's good. I mean, he's been putting up great numbers for a team that's really good. Irving, I think with the way that some other guys have struggled, and I wrote this sort of in power rankings this week, Sekou, that going into the season, I thought that Al Horford remained that team's most important player just because of his skill set compared to all the perimeter guys who sort of had overlapping skill sets. But with the way that Jaylen Brown, Hayward, and Terry Rozier to an extent have like sort of struggled this year, Irving's sort of offense has been more valuable or more important this year than I think it was last year. So that's sort of part of my consideration with him.
Right.
And so I had Irving and Simmons, and then Kyle Lowry was the toughest one to not include for me. I think Kemba Walker will get there. Like that's the one good thing about all these picks is like even when it is time to vote for us, like I don't think we have to worry about leaving a guy off and him not being an all-star. But I think Kyle Lowry is worth considering. And I'm keeping him on my short list for when it comes time to actually vote.
Yeah,
I would put him third in the East backcourt.
I got Kawhi, Embiid, and Giannis up front. I think it's not debatable that those are the three guys that should be in those slots. I wish Oladipo hadn't gotten hurt and missed the time he did because I think this would have been his year to be in that first five in the backcourt. I happen to side with Howard on Kemba only because I'm looking at the load he shoulders compared to what some other guys have to do. He's not playing on a team where there are the number of other high-quality players to play off of like Kyrie has or like Ben Simmons has. And I didn't even think about Simmons as one of the starters, as one of the, I really had it down to Kemba and Kyrie, and Kyrie's maddening, more so for what comes out of his mouth than what comes off the flick of his wrist. But he, his talent and his skill and the way he plays is undeniable. So I could see anybody making that choice. Christmas, and this All-Star voting and this Christmas Day games, guys, are, to me, a really nice space to start the conversation that you dropped in your article on Bleacher Report Howard, about Giannis. There are people who have yet to comprehend fully what this guy's doing, with Mike Budenholzer's offense as a platform now. What's your take on the overall resurgence in Milwaukee? How much of it is Giannis elevating to that next level, and how much is it those fresh eyes that Budenholzer and his staff brought in the moving and twisting and tweaking that they've done to improve the overall roster in Milwaukee?
I mean, it's the can I say symbiosis on this podcast?
Yes, you can use that word.
I mean, it's both. It's symbiotic. Like, Budenholzer came in with a vision, and that he sold to John Horst, the GM. Wasn't a really hard sell, but it was the vision that he laid out when they spoke about this job months ago, where he said, "Look, I think there's a lot more here. There's a lot more potential to be unlocked. There's more that Giannis can do without adding a single thing to his game. We just need to give him the space, the palette, basically, to do it." And it was to go with a 5-out offense. It was to go out and get more three-point shooting, including at the center position in John Schumann's favorite, Brook Lopez. And it wasn't just there. They got Brook, they got Ersan Ilyasova. They drafted DiVincenzo. They picked up Pat Connaughton, who was a low-volume three-point shooter in Portland, but an efficient one. So, and a guy who they actually really like for his defensive toughness as well. And so they got Budenholzer kind of guys to run a Budenholzer kind of scheme. I mean, it's a different scheme than he had in Atlanta, but because he's got Giannis at the center of it, and you've got not just a supreme playmaker as Giannis is. I mean, maybe not at LeBron level, but he is, a virtual 7-footer point forward type who does see the floor well, who does make plays well, and who, when he's coming down, the center of the floor, there's no one getting in front of him. There's no stopping him, and he just might fly over you anyway. And so it unlocked a lot of potential, and Giannis has taken full advantage of it. The Wall Street Journal had a great story recently about, I think he's on some sort of record pace for dunks because the floor is wide open. So, huge credit to Budenholzer and John Horst for basically saying there's a better way we can use the guys we already have, and we just need to plug in the right role players. And the last point I'll make on this real quick is just that it's very rare in this league to see a team make the kind of quantum leap that the Bucks have made without adding either an all-star or some injured star back into the mix. They didn't add, this is no disrespect to Brook Lopez or Ersan Ilyasova or anybody else, but they didn't add impact players in the offseason in the traditional sense. They added an impact coach, and then they got the right players to put around Giannis, and they have made this huge leap as a result.
I'm not sure, Shu, that there's a way to calculate Giannis's impact in this era when he's not shooting threes, which has become the number one tool for basically all the great players. Even LeBron is shooting threes as well as he ever has. Does it make sense, Shu, when you hear guys like Shaq and other people talk about how dominant Giannis is without him having that as a part of his arsenal right now?
Howard mentioned the dunks, but yeah, you can look at dunks, you can look at points in the restricted area, you can look at points in the paint. He's doing stuff that nobody has done in basically 15 years at least, since Shaq, basically. And Shaq is a totally different kind of player in a totally different era. So it is kind of unprecedented, and credit to Budenholzer, credits to that team for buying into that system also, all those players, and even a guy like a Bledsoe who's changed his game along the way. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see all these East teams sort of match up in the playoffs, and especially sort of how teams try to defend the Bucks. And if there is somebody that they can, any of these teams, whether it be Boston or Philly or Toronto or Indiana, where they have a player they can put in front of Giannis and say, that's your assignment, and try to stay at home on everybody else. I don't know if that's possible. I can't wait to see it. And I think it's something to keep an eye on when they match up with those teams going forward.
Yeah, the Bucks and the Knicks kick off the 5-game slate on Christmas Day at noon. Thunder Rockets at 3, 76ers and Celtics at 5:30. Lakers and Warriors at 8, and the Blazers and the Jazz wrap it all up that night at 10:30. Howard, I thought it was awesome. The Steve Ashburner, colleague here at NBA.com, had a really good story after the AD-Giannis matchup, where Giannis is basically diving into this whole party that everybody else is telling AD, man, why don't you come to Milwaukee? Come to the Bucks. Is that where we are now in the overall NBA landscape, where basically 2 years out, we start speculating nonstop about a superstar's free agent possibilities because of the fact that these contracts are so short? You don't have time to do anything other than speculate about what's next when it's a one-and-one deals, or, you got 4 years before guys back on that free agent market that literally drives the NBA headline monster year round.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's so many different dynamics at work here, but I mean, I think, and I wrote about this in the Giannis story that I just did, which is that starting with LeBron in 2010, when LeBron broke the old mold and said, I, the best player in the game, can go wherever I want and join up with other stars and not pay a price. I mean, he paid a short-term price, but long-term, the man's got 3 championships and he just keeps moving. And now we just shrug. Oh, he went to LA? Okay, that's cool. Oh, Paul George forced his way out and he's in Oklahoma now? All right, no problem. Kawhi's in Toronto? Okay, no problem. Like, there's the old paradigm is just gone. The idea of player loyalty, which, if that ever even should have existed. I mean, I'm not judging it one way or the other, but that idea is out of style, basically. So you start with that. And then, as you mentioned, the NBA has shortened contracts in every CBA for the last 15 years. And we're now down to 4 or 5 years. And so you combine all that with the leverage players have, so that Kyrie Irving, with 2 years left on his deal, could say, yeah, you know what, I want out. And the Cavs say, okay, we're trading you to Boston because you don't want to be here anymore. So now, if you're on a 4 or 5 year deal, a couple years in, the clock's already ticking. And so and the other thing is, and this is, I think, probably the most influential piece of this, players in this day and age, because they know they can make a lot of money no matter where they play. You're not sacrificing much. I mean, you're sacrificing a lot in normal person's terms. You might be sacrificing $30 million, but you're still going to make $180 or $200 million when you change teams. And so the old incentives that were designed to keep guys at home just aren't that influential anymore. And so that leads us to the last piece, which is players are now prioritizing winning and contending over a lot of other stuff. And we, the public, have created this. We have said, hey, Charles Barkley, your career's not complete because you never won a title. Hey, Karl Malone, your career wasn't complete. And so today's players are saying, well, if I can't get help here where I am, if this GM, this front office, this owner can't get me the help I need, I got to go somewhere else because I've got a legacy to build. I got a brand to build, and I've only got X number of years. And so if Anthony Davis is looking around his surroundings and saying, well, I'm playing on a 500 team for the moment in a tiny market with shaky fan support, maybe I should be somewhere else. And he'd be, it's a reasonable thing for him to consider. Now, we don't know what will ultimately happen, but we do know there's a trigger point on July 1st. He either accepts the Supermax or he rejects it. And if he rejects it, it means that he doesn't want to be there and they're going to trade him. So it's fair for us to speculate because we are basically 8 months away, 7.5 months away from the trigger point for AD to decide where he wants to be. And, that's a very big thing considering he's a top 5 player in the NBA.
What's weird about it is that as much as purists and people who claim to be traditionalists bellyache about it and how much they hate it, and you hear these older players, former players say, oh, I would have never joined up with a guy. The basketball public loves it. They love to hate it. They love to love it. They love to argue about it. They love to tweet about it. I mean, it drives the machine right now, which I remember the days when guys were signing 6-year deals. I'll never forget Ron Artest signing a long-term deal in Indiana and people being upset about him doing it, saying, man, you got to bet on yourself. That's too long a deal, including the general manager who gave him the contract to sign. Donnie Walsh told me, he was like, I don't think he should do it. I think he should bet on himself and sign a shorter-term deal, but he wanted the security. The players, they don't even seem like they care about the long-term security. They're much more interested in the flexibility of being able to change their circumstance sooner rather than later. You think that's the right thing for the players to have on their mind?
I think it's an individual case-by-case basis. I mean, it's backfired for some guys, for sure. I'm kind of fascinated by how public stuff comes and how guys handle it. Because I go back to Chris Paul leaving New Orleans right after the lockout, where it was they went into training camp knowing that they had to trade him, but like he never said anything, like he was able to, I guess it helped that it was during sort of in the off season where he didn't have to be in front of cameras. He didn't have to answer any questions from reporters. And like it was his sort of demand to leave was rather quiet. And then, obviously there was the botched or the trade that got taken back to the Lakers, and then the trade to the Clippers. And then you compare that to like the Jimmy Butler situation this year where it was just PR disaster. But
it was great. It was great for storyline. I mean, it kept the buzz going. We don't even talk about the Timberwolves anymore. We couldn't stop talking about them for the first month and a half of the season.
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of fascinating. Like you some guys can save their rep by doing it quietly, where other guys will take shots for being more public about it or having it come out in a certain way. It's always interesting to see how it all gets handled from a PR perspective, a media perspective, from the players' perspective as well. Obviously, if Butler, I guess he said something, he says he said something right after the season, but like if that situation got handled during the summer, then it would have been much different than having it all take place, over the course of the preseason and then the first, 10 games of the season, whatever it was.
I'm not one of these guys, Howard. You've been covering the league a long time, as have I. I'm not one of these guys who says that, no matter if it's positive or negative, it's good to have the NBA in the headlines all year round. I remember when there was a time when there was an actual offseason where you could vanish and disappear for a few weeks and nobody would mind. The NBA knocks the NFL out of the headlines in the offseason now, which never happened 15, 20 years ago. Have we jumped that shark now in the NBA where it's the new 24-hour, 365 sports news cycle that the NFL was, I think, in a previous generation?
I think we can safely say the NBA is a 12-month sport now because of all of the off-season movement, off-season chatter. The fact that Summer League takes up, it feels like almost the entire month of July now. And the league does love this. Listen, there may well be a price to pay sometime down the line for stars jumping around as often as they do these days, or for stars most of the time when they jumping from smaller markets to larger markets. There may be a price down the line where fans in smaller markets, there just becomes a group depression where it's like, you lose Kawhi Leonard, and maybe the Spurs aren't going to be great again for a long time for all we know. I mean, it's hard to believe it's because of the Spurs, but nothing lasts forever. And then what if AD leaves New Orleans, and what if Giannis does leave Milwaukee? What if it just continues the trend that we've seen over the last 8 years or more? There may be a price to pay down the line, but in the meantime, the league enjoys the fact and knows that it is benefiting from the fact that fans are consuming that much more NBA media in one form or another. Twitter and just every aspect, every different entry point you can think of, it's keeping the NBA in the discussion on talk radio, on podcasts, social media. And that year-round coverage and the speculation and the intrigue, rumors, everybody loves transaction rumors. All that stuff just fuels interest. The NBA, there's not a question in my mind that the folks at Olympic Tower love that aspect of it. But as I say, it's fun for the moment. It's this nice, it's like the dopamine hits you get when you're checking Twitter or your email or your text. And the NBA is getting those constant dopamine hits from all the fan interest. I do wonder and I do worry to some extent that at some point there may be a price to pay, because if fans start checking out in certain markets where they just feel like there's a hopelessness, because if you get a great player, if you're fortunate to get him, the clock ticks and then a few years later the guy's gone, that effect may be a problem down the line.
Yeah. My other big concern, and I'm looking at these Christmas Day matchups. The Bucks are matched up against a Knicks team that doesn't move the needle for anybody.
It's not the Knicks that are on the Christmas Day showcase. It's Madison Square Garden that's on the Christmas. Just think of it that way, right?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
So it's a transcendent really star playing at Madison Square Garden on Christmas. That's what that game is. It's not about the Knicks. It's about Madison Square Garden.
So, I mean, if we have –
But the other 4 games are great.
Right. And we had this thing for a while now where people, moaned and groaned. Well, if your big market teams aren't a factor, the league is less than. The Lakers went 5 years without making the playoffs. Longest stretch I believe they've had in the history of the organization. And now they're back in the mix with LeBron. I mean, how much longer do we go? Seriously. And both you guys have New York roots or are New York based. How much longer can we go with the Knicks being the ghost of a franchise that they are? Seriously. Can it go on for another 5-year cycle where they're just not in the mix?
I think so. I mean, you go to that building, and it doesn't matter how bad they are, really. I mean, it's always full. And a lot of it is tourists. Like, I'll be walking like down the stairwell, like after a game, and you'll hear like 5 different languages, people who come in to New York to visit and from different countries, and they've never seen an NBA game. And here's an NBA game right down the street from where they're staying. So as far as that building, they don't need to be good. They really don't. And there's always going to be stars coming in and playing. But as far as the league, I guess, I mean, I don't know how important it is as far as TV ratings. I mean, TV ratings are great, and the Knicks are terrible. But I think there's promise. I mean, hopefully Porzingis comes back healthy and stronger than ever. And they've got some young guys that are playing well, and they have cap space. So I think I think there's still hope for another 8 months at least until we get to July and then see what happens.
I just can't fathom that they could be this much of a non-factor, Howard, after all these years. It's crazy.
Well, because they've been a non-factor for so long, I think that's just the norm now. That is the new normal. Wow. So I just take that as the given. I think if they become relevant, that's the outlier at this point. I mean, in the last 20 years almost, it's been pretty bleak there. Listen, there's still an allure of New York and of the Garden itself. And here's your best case scenario for the Knicks, and it's not a hard one to sketch out. The best case scenario, Porzingis comes back from his ACL, exactly the same special player he was with no limitations, and all the wonderful gifts that he has are still intact, and that's enough to draw KD or somebody in free agency. And if you've got KD and Porzingis, and then they maybe trade some of their other young pieces for a third star, boom, you're in business. I'm not sure a KD, Porzingis, Kevin Knox, Frank Ntilikina, Tim Hardaway Jr. core is enough. And actually, I think they probably have to offload Tim Hardaway Jr. at some point just to make room to get other pieces they need. Or they don't even have a full max slot available yet. They still have to make do some maneuvering. But there's a scenario there. Now, listen, I'm on record already on this piece of it. I don't think KD should join the Knicks. I don't understand why he would. I don't even understand why he would leave Golden State at all. But if he did leave Golden State, I think he's got better options. But that is, look, around the league, there are a lot of people who believe that that's a very real thing, that KD to New York is not just some speculative rumor or whatever, that this is a real possibility. If that happens, to answer your question, Sekou, they're in business. Yeah. One KD later, you're very relevant, but they still need Porzingis to be back to who he was. Otherwise, KD doesn't have much help. Now, the flip scenario, of course, is KD snubs them. No stars come for their max slot. And Porzingis, look, there's no precedent for a 7'3" player who plays the way he does, period, much less a 7'3" player who plays the way he does coming back from an ACL. Right. So we don't really know what his future is. And that's a little scary.
Listen, Durant is the one who talked about Porzingis being the unicorn. That was the first guy I remember, verbalizing that. The other thing is I do see where the connecting tissue could be in New York for him. He's got history with Scott Perry. Scott Perry was assistant GM in Seattle when, Durant was drafted. He had a ground floor relationship with Kevin Durant when he came into the league. And you got Royal Ivey on David Fizdale's staff, who, from what I understand, is one of KD's oldest and closest, friends in the league, and they have the Texas connection. So there's a lot, if you're looking for, all these different underlying fibers, you could start connecting pieces. But I agree with you, Howard. Why would anybody leave what the Warriors have going on right now? I can't fathom anybody running away from a championship situation at its peak if KD was to leave. And seriously, I went back through and looked at every championship run, dynasty, mini dynasty, pseudo dynasty, should have been dynasty. No central figure leaves when it's at its zenith on his own volition. Like, you might get traded, something else might happen, but you don't pack up and leave when it's going the way the Warriors have it going. That, to me, for all the stuff we talk about, Giannis, AD, anybody else, if Durant bolts Golden State, for anywhere. I don't care where he goes. That will be the true stunner for me. You talk about turning the league upside down when you don't have to. That would be the move to me that changes everything. That changes what free agents do the next 2 and 3 years if KD were to make that move this summer.
I mean, I think there's a similar thread between that and Kyrie Irving leaving Cleveland, where that team had been to the finals 3 straight years, and they were about to go to the finals one more time, and he said, "I'm out."
No, shoot, I don't think Kyrie.
Well, I'll just say, let me continue. Like, there's a thing where, like, Kyrie wanted his own thing, right? Like, and like he made one of the biggest shots in NBA history, and the first person that Doris Burke is talking to at the end of the finals is LeBron James. And the headline is LeBron James delivered a championship to Cleveland, right? He's the dude who hit the shot.
Yes.
And the same thing in Golden State, Durant's never going to be the number one guy. I mean, that's just the way, like, that's just not the way it is. And you see this on a lot of franchises, is they like the guy that they drafted and who was their guy from day one, more than they like the import. But I think New York is one place where they'll accept the free agent star coming in and and call him their number one guy and won't prefer the homegrown guys more than him. And so I think, like, Durant, in the eyes of Warriors fans, is probably like number 4 on their list, right? Because the other 3 guys have been there from day one.
No, come on, shoot.
Just as far as the guys that they truly root for. If you were to ask, like, a Warriors fan, all right, who do you want to hit the biggest shot tonight? It'd be Curry, number 1, and then, like, Clay and Draymond. Like, I just feel like, Durant's the extra that came in and
a Warriors fan with one too many beers, maybe. Are you crazy? I mean, he's the finals, 2-time finals MVP.
Right, but he made things too easy.
But let me chime in here for a second.
Please.
He's the 2-time finals MVP, but last June, after he won MVP and the votes were revealed, and I'm among those who voted for KD, I had, like, Steph Curry fans, like, all over my butt for this. Like, I bring it up because it kind of matters. Like, not that, a bunch of cranky Steph Curry loyalists should be influential in any of this, but it speaks to the dynamic there, which is that Steph Curry was there first. He was the guy who was the center of that team. He was a 2-time regular season MVP. He's the guy who, led this renaissance in Oakland. And KD comes in, and listen, like, Steph is still number 1, I think, in the hearts and minds of people in the Bay Area, and that may matter to KD. And there is this weird dynamic where, like, us on the outside, we just look at it and say, they got 4 phenomenal players, including 2 guys who are just all-timers as scorers, as offensive players, creators, and on any given day, one guy or the other might be the more important, and we have no emotional investment in it. But Warriors fans have a deep emotional investment in it, and it is mostly with Steph, and they're offended by the idea that KD could be elevated above him, even for something like Finals MVP that he very well earned. And if KD feels that, instead of the validation and vindication he gets from winning 2 Finals MVPs, and being a really important part of them being able to win those 2 championships that a lot of people around the league think maybe they don't get without him. And instead, he doesn't get the credit for it. And there's even this weird, like I say, this backlash from Curry fans. Maybe that is all part of the dynamic that eventually makes him think, I got to reestablish something different about what I do and how important I am somewhere else.
I look at it this way, like, even from my perspective, I have no investment in the Warriors more than any other team. But that first championship, 2015, I loved that team. That team was so much fun. And then, like, the last 2, I don't love that team as much. It was too easy. Like, seriously, it was. Like, they're just
There's
too
something
good.
To that.
There's too
That's
good.
Fair.
I mean, they came out of sort of nowhere that first year, not totally out of nowhere, but, like, they were number 1 offensive team. They were the first team that says you can play fast and still play great defense. Like, that was a unique team, and it was special. And then, they had Durant, and it's like,
I'm crushed. I'm crushed because this is, what this is? This is about who and what you are deep down in your own core. I'm a run up the score kind of guy. Like, I'm one of these dudes that you beat somebody 65-0. Why not get 70? You throw that last touchdown in the fourth quarter in the last minute just for the hell of it. Like, I like Darth Vader. I appreciated the dark side. I'm all for humiliating the opposition. And then there are people who are just better human beings than me. They don't want to see somebody lord over everybody else. They don't want to see a team that vanquishes everybody. So I get it. I understand I'm on the other side of this spectrum. But the point you guys make about Steph and KD, it's the same thing I wrestle with every week, trying to come up with the right order on the MVP ladder, because the value I see in what Steph does, and it's taken me probably the last year to really compute that and internalize it. Sometimes you can be the best player and the most important player on a team without having the numbers or having the biggest performance at certain times. Like, I understand that KD, when you get in the finals, there's a matchup nightmare for somebody, whether it's Cleveland and LeBron or whoever, where KD is simply physically overmatching the competition in ways that Steph, as great as he is, can't in a series where you're locked up, in a 2-week stretch. So I understand this guttural, attachment to Steph that Warriors fans have. I also understand, Howard, and you know this probably better than most, for as long as the Warriors were an afterthought in the NBA, they've had a fan base that's treated their own players and elevated their own to levels that other people would not. So Steph is truly the embodiment of everything Warriors fans have always wanted. Their own homegrown, game-changing superstar who plays the game with a joy and an energy that resonates with the Bay Area and those Warriors fans. But how do you separate those two guys in our business? Like, how do you put the proper value on what Steph brings and what Durant brings and give them both the respect they deserve? If KD stays with the Golden State Warriors, it's never going to be fixed. He can win Finals MVP 5 more times. It's never going to be rectified. There's going to be a block of Warriors fans who will never let it go that Steph is the center of their universe.
I think that's probably true, and I think maybe it will only be in the longer view of history that Warrior fans or maybe even NBA fans elsewhere will appreciate KD for the truly incredible player that he is and his importance to this era. I mean, it may just take years, and maybe that we're still too much in the moment and still grappling with the idea that we're living in an age where a player of KD's caliber can leave a team that was in the conference finals in a Game 7 to go to the team that beat him and then help them win championships. I mean, I think it's – listen, I don't mean to bring it up in a snarky way at all.
True. Like, it has to be a part of it. Yeah.
But it's just there. Like, I am in the camp of philosophically of guys should just go where they want to go, where they're going to be happy. And I don't have any problem at all with KD having gone to the Warriors. But my opinion doesn't matter because there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, who knows how many people across the country who are NBA fans who don't like it, didn't like it, still don't like it, and still will hold it against him and still say that it cheapens his accomplishments. I think that's BS, but the opinion exists. That sentiment exists out there. And so if you're a player, if you're dealing with that and you're cognizant of that, and KD certainly is because we've seen him react in so many different ways to people publicly, then that does weigh on you on some level. But I think, listen, this is a historically great team. It was formed different than other historically great teams, and that's the part that people are still grappling with. It used to be if you had 4 Hall of Famers on the old Celtics teams, or 3 Hall of Famers on the Bulls, counting Rodman with Jordan and Pippen, whatever it may be, whichever example you want to pull from history. We're just used to it having been orchestrated by a front office instead of by players. And it's the part that when it's orchestrated by players, starting with the Heat in 2010, that some fans still can't get their head around. And so it colors their perceptions and how they view these guys and how they evaluate their accomplishments.
We're going to get a chance to watch all that drama and more on Christmas, which is what I love about the NBA. When nothing else is going on Christmas Day after you tear open gifts and fill your belly with a little brunch, there's going to be basketball on all day. Bucks and Knicks at noon, Thunder and Rockets at 3, 76ers and Celtics at 5:30. That Lakers-Warriors game at 8 that everybody will be watching, and then the Blazers-Jazz to top it off. If I asked you guys, I'm gonna put you this way, and then I'm moving on. If I asked you guys right now, you get KD or Steph to start your new team, who are you taking?
Oh, that is tough. I mean, I think I lean. God, I think I lean Steph because aside from all the other amazing things that he does, and look, KD is one of the most unique players in NBA history, and then at that size, he's just an impossible guard. I'd want him. Steph has that other element. Steph brings that joy to the game. I mean, it almost feels like a cliche to use the words Steph and joy in the same sentence.
Yeah.
But it matters. It matters. And we've seen, Shu, you got the numbers, I'm sure, at your fingertips. But I think they're always better with Steph than they are with just KD. And every time Steph goes out, they just don't quite look the same. And part of that may be his gravity. Part of it may be his playmaking. And part of it just may be that there's a certain spirit to that team that Steph always embodied. And to Shu's point about their first championship run, that was what was so much fun. Partly that we couldn't see it coming. Partly that it was that whole strength in numbers group, and there wasn't any one guy, even though Steph was the guy. It was that was when we still talked about the Splash Brothers, as if those two guys were equals, as if it was a pairing that mattered, not one guy that mattered. But there's something special about Steph in terms of his overall makeup that I think lifts a team, and that's no knock on KD whatsoever. It's just a difference between them.
Yeah. Shu, who would you take?
Curry, because I'd be less worried that he's going to leave in another.
Wow.
That's how you break it down to the bare bones. Nice.
That's a shot.
No, but you know what? I was just looking. I didn't realize that they're the same age. Like, I didn't realize that they're only 6 months apart.
Yes.
And Curry's 6 months older, actually. I hadn't even thought about that sort of part of the equation. But yeah, I think Curry, you can build. I mean, Durant's the more complete player, but I think you could find easier complements for Curry, I guess, if that's makes sense.
Maybe because he shares it the way he does too. Maybe because he's willing to share in ways that we didn't know if Durant was until he got to I didn't know if he could play like that until he got to the Warriors. Because he spent his whole career in Seattle and Oklahoma City in kind of a two-man thing where it was him or Russ, playing hero ball. I gained a new appreciation for Durant's game when he went to the Warriors, but I agree with you. If I'm starting fresh, if I'm an expansion team, and as much as I love KD and as transcendent as I think his talent is, I don't think you can put a number or a measurement on the spirit that Steph brings to a team. And if you have nothing else, listen to his teammates talk about how different life is with him, or listen to Steve Kerr talk. That's the story on the Sports Person of the Year being that entire Warriors team and organization was a fascinating read by Chris Ballard in SI. It spoke to all of the different elements they have. Draymond, and I think there's something about the way that Steph and Klay as a pair, as Splash Brothers, the fact that they were raised in the NBA, in the NBA environment, in NBA households, where they had a certain respect and understanding for how you comport yourself at the highest level coming into the league. They already knew it. They understood it intrinsically, that you had to be a certain type of person to be the type of champions and leaders they've become. Is something that you can never erase from that equation. And I think it's what makes Steph the transcendent talent that he is on and off the court, and it's what's made this Warriors dynasty go from the start. So
yeah, I want to say just one quick thing. There's something like Duncan-esque in his sort of in him being like a franchise player that makes a huge impact on the floor, and then obviously is no maintenance off the floor.
Yeah, I agree. Shu, what is your trivia for this week? I mean, we got Christmas games coming up, fantastic matchups. The whole world's watching. I'm kicking everybody out for Lakers Warriors, so I don't have to hear any noise. So what's your trivia this week on the Schumann stat? And it better be Christmas Day related.
It is. So it's 5 quick trivia questions about the 5 matchups that we have on Christmas Day.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
All right. So first one
is Howard. Get ready now. I'm telling you.
So first one is, which Christmas Day matchup features a top 5 offense versus a top 5 defense? As we're talking on Thursday. Mm-hmm. So it's through Wednesday's games. Top 5 offense versus a top 5 defense.
Well, it ain't the Bucks-Knicks game, I'll tell you that.
Correct. It's not the Bucks-Knicks game. But which of the other 4?
What about Blazers-Jazz?
Nope.
I think it's Rockets-Thunder.
It is. Rockets, number 5 offense, Thunder, number 1 defense. All right. Which Christmas Day matchup features 3 of the 5 top pull-up three-point shooters? Now, I'm talking minimum of 50 pull-up three-point attempts. This matchup has 3 of the top 5 in regard to pull-up three-point percentage with a minimum of 50 attempts.
Pull-up.
Well, it ain't Knicks Bucks, I'll tell you. Oh, sorry. I used that joke.
Lakers, Warriors.
Nope.
God,
That has two of the top five, but that's not three of the top. That's the other three in the top five are in this other game.
Huh.
LeBron is number 5, LeBron is number 4 in pull-up 3% point percentage. Stephen Curry is number 1. But number 2, 3, and 5 are all in another Christmas Day matchup.
That's a really fascinating question. Is it Rockets Thunder again?
Nope.
It's got to be Blazers Jazz then.
Nope.
What? The Sixers and the Celtics?
Nope.
Stop.
We're at a game?
I just dropped my mic. Stop.
It is the Milwaukee Bucks and the New York Knicks featuring Eric Bledsoe, number 2, 41% on 66 pull-up three-point attempts.
Wow.
Tim Hardaway Jr., 41% on 106 pull-up three-point attempts. And Chris Middleton, 40% on 88 pull-up three-point attempts.
So you're saying we're starting off today with a gunner's paradise?
Yes, Tim Hardaway, been good shooter off the dribble.
Yeah, right. I'll be hearing from Knicks fans on that one.
All right, which one features 2 of the top 5 teams in fast break points per game?
That has to be Lakers Warriors, doesn't it?
Correct. Lakers are number 2 at 20.4, and Warriors are number 5 at 16.8 per game.
Oh, God.
All right, easy one. Which is the only one that features 2 teams that won a playoff series last year or last season?
That won playoff series last year. Well, it ain't Bucks, Knicks, and it ain't Jazz. 76ers and Celtics.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Which features a top 5 team in assist percentage versus percentage of field goals that were assisted versus a bottom 5 team in assist percentage.
Who's moving the rock?
Lakers Warriors again?
Nope, the only one we haven't mentioned yet. Utah Jazz, number 5 in assist percentage. Portland Trailblazers, number 28 in assist percentage.
28? I would never have guessed that.
Dame and CJ are not necessarily
They are shooters off the dribble.
Well, and the thing is, that fits the profile, but at the same time, they're also guys who can do both. And so I wouldn't have – that they would be lower is fine, but 28?
They were the only team, I think going back last year, I think they were 30th.
Really?
So they've slightly seen a slight.
You talk about no trust in the rest of that in that support cast.
Wow.
And I'm not mad at it. You got to do what works for you. You got to play to win.
The fascinating thing is that they, Terry Stotts, I think this is the 4th year that McCollum's been a starter. So the first 3 years, he staggered their minutes completely. So he'd always have one on the floor at all times. So one would end the first quarter, the other one be on the court to start the second. He stopped doing that this year. And then in the last month, they've just been awful with both of them off the floor and Evan Turner running the offense. So I'm kind of curious to see if he sort of goes back to the old ways. He did it for a game last week and it didn't really work. So.
Well, now I got to watch that last game. I got to find a way to stay up all day and night on Christmas and watch that last game to see how many times they share. Howard, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. We appreciate you, man. The podcast, the stories, everything. You're killing it as always on Bleacher Report. It's going to be fun to see where this season goes. And I think your story on Giannis brings up a lot of things we're going to have to pay attention to in the coming years. Because this is a new era, as you mentioned. This is a different generation of player in terms of how they understand their power in this league. And I think those 2 guys in particular, Giannis and AD, might be the headliners of what we see in the years to come in terms of superstar player movement, and whether or not those guys decide to pull up stakes and go somewhere else changes and shifts the balance of power in this league as LeBron finally exits the stage probably in the next 15 years. So we appreciate all you do as always, man, and great stuff covering this league for so many years.
Thanks for that, Sekou. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the great work you guys do as well, and happy holidays to you guys as well. Hope you enjoy it. And I know we'll all be up late and tweeting, I'm sure, on Christmas.
No question. We're off on Monday on Christmas Eve. We do have a soul around here. We will make sure John Hartzell doesn't have to work on Christmas Eve.
There'll be a new edition of Power Rankings.
Yes, you're still going to be on the hook for Power Rankings. We'll be back next Thursday with another edition of the Hang Time Podcast, the last one, I believe, of calendar year 2018. So be sure to subscribe to Hang Time on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes all season long. We appreciate you. Make sure you leave a review. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next time right here on the Hang Time Podcast.